So, Nanaimo Daily News, you're in an interview with Nanaimo Mayor John Ruttan. We got 20 questions for him today. So, as I said, answer them as fully as you want to. So, number one, reflecting on your first term as mayor, the one that just ended, was it a success?
Well, I think that it was. We certainly had our fair challenges, a fair number of challenges, but I think by and large it went reasonably well, given the economic conditions that prevailed for it. It was a tough time economically, and I think that given the circumstances, I think the term was a success.
Number two, what was your greatest disappointment in terms of what didn't get done?
Well, I'd have to say my favorite twosome, the fast ferry, the foot passenger ferry to Vancouver, and also the Conference Centre Hotel. I think these are both key components. They were in the last term, they are in this term. But I think it's important to say that there is some progress being made on both. It's very much preliminary at this point, but I think they are both achievable within the next 3-year term.
What was your greatest accomplishment?
Well, I have to think on that one. I think one of the things I was very proud of, and it is yet to be fully developed, and of course that's the new Economic Development Corporation. It started off as the Nanaimo Economic Development Commission and then morphed into the corporation. It was approved by the province of British Columbia, and one of the very few in BC that operates in that manner. It's a separate corporation. But we oversee it by having the progress board in place to make sure that the projects that they embark on and the monies are spent, since it's taxpayers' money, are well invested and secure, and that's what we're going to oversee. But I think the initial action on economic development at this point has been extremely promising, and I'm very optimistic it's the right way to go.
Question 4. Were you surprised by the backlash over the sites selected for low-barrier housing projects?
No, I wasn't really. It maybe had been a little more aggressive than I had anticipated, but I understand it's an emotional issue, certainly for residents in the area. But, we have to really look at Nanaimo on the basis of the entire community. And when we committed to the province of British Columbia to build 5 low-barrier housing or supportive housing units, we felt, and I still feel today, that it's fair and equitable to be divided equally throughout the community. And that's what we've done. And yes, the North End has some feelings on it, but I really believe that it will be well managed. I think the 2 organizations that will be involved in the operation will see to it that it will be closely monitored. And I'd like to feel that the concerns that the residents expressed will not develop, and I think the police are going to be very active as well in that regard.
Question 5. Did that issue affect the outcome of the election?
I think it probably did to an extent. I would think there were some votes, possibly one councillor was elected, I think, primarily because of what happened out there. And but, by and large, I think it's important to note that the 6 incumbents were all returned, and the 3 new seats were vacated by people who resigned. So the end result, I think, speaks for itself. But I'm sure it had a definite impact on the election.
Number 6, has the criticisms of the previous council led to changes in how this council will operate?
I don't know that it will. I think we're looking at, a new and diverse group again, and there's always a little bit of pushback and angst at the very beginning of any new term, and I would suggest that's probably true of every city council and every community. And people are jockeying for position, jockeying for titles, jockeying for jobs that they feel they're best qualified to perform. And of course, it falls upon the mayor to make recommendations on what he or she feels would be best. In my case, for Nanaimo, I made the appointments based on what I felt was they were the best candidates, and then it fell upon council to make the final determination and decision. And in the case of Nanaimo, with the committees, it was passed 5-3 at the last open meeting.
You're leading me into question number 7. Can this new council work cooperatively given that some internal battles have already emerged?
I think we can. As I mentioned earlier with the previous question, when it's a new group, recognizing that we had really only one meeting so far, and there's always a little bit of push and shove trying to get the groups and committees together. But I think we can, and I'm absolutely convinced that if there's an issue that affects the community at large, this new council will pull together and make the right decisions. And I believe that truly. I think we can. There may be jurisdictional things and questions on locations that will be challenged, but that's what democracy is all about. We were all elected to make the tough decisions, and in the end, majority rules, and that's the way it'll be.
Is tax control this council's top priority?
I can't say that it would be the top priority, but I can say it's an important one. I know and I'm sure every single one of the council members are concerned about tax increases. And, it goes without saying. There was some question during the last election where some councillors were asked if they would support a zero tax increase for 3 years. I'd love to have been able to sign that myself. But in reality, that simply isn't possible. Let me give you just a couple of quick examples. One, the RCMP are looking at 24 additional members, 24 more members over and above what they already have now. And the cost to the Nanaimo taxpayer per person is $145,000. Now, this is not the wage they're paid. I want to stress that. This is the cost to the city for each member, which includes equipment, vehicles, and so on. So when you take the cost of operating the RCMP in Nanaimo divided by the number of officers on record, it comes out to about $145,000. So when we add another 24, yes, it's a huge undertaking. But then you have to ask, are the people of Nanaimo comfortable with the enforcement that's going on now? Do they want to see an improvement? Or are they happy with the status quo? And my assumption is that they want to see the very best police control we can have. Same for the fire department when it comes to safety and security. And these come with a cost. We're looking at building the new Hammond Bay Fire Hall in 2013. We'll start in 2013. That's another $5 million investment, recognizing that every $800,000 is 1% tax increase. So if you don't want to build a new fire hall, if you don't want to hire additional police officers, if you want to struggle by on with what you've got, you may save taxes, but at what cost?
Number 9, will there be a core review? And if not, how do you satisfy those who are adamant that we need it?
Well, there may be, but a core review in and of itself can take many different forms. So I strongly support, and I think most of council does, having a review of some type, whether it's an actual core review, will be something that council as a whole will determine. But I think it's important, and I think staff do. I can't speak for them, but my assumption is that they themselves feel that it's necessary to have a review of all the different committees and departments, and making sure that they're all in compliance with what council expects, and that there is the necessary cost savings policies in place, and that the taxpayers' monies are well invested. And I feel everyone goes that way. It may be in the next 3 years we will have a core review. It may be a review that's similar to, but not the same as that, and we'll have to wait and see what council decides.
Number 10, should we build a bridge to Newcastle Island?
Well, something, it's an interesting concept. I just feel that would be fraught with challenge. One of the concerns, of course, we have low-flying aircraft that come up and down the channel there. We have the problems with marine traffic going through there. I think the biggest issue is who's going to pay for it. The taxpayers are always concerned about dollars and cents. And when you look at building the bridge, is it a user pay scheme? Would there be a toll to go over? Who would administer it? Remember that Newcastle Island, which is a provincial park and a beautiful, beautiful island, would some of the ambience and the appeal that it now has be damaged in any way by a huge number of people going over there every day? All these considerations have to be taken into account. And I think that the First Nations and I know that Nanaimo has some very strong feelings about the land, and it's traditional territory for them. They would very much like to see a longhouse, possibly totems, not from outside areas, but Nanaimo historic totems on that site. Aboriginal tourism will be a huge economic generator in the years to come, and we totally support Nanaimo on this. But the bridge, that's a challenge, and I'm uncomfortable with the concept at this time, but I can always be convinced later.
How about lighted kelp beds?
Well, that's another one. I guess if you're jigging for cod, it might have some advantages, but years and years ago, and I'm maybe going back 40 years, there was a company in Nanaimo, a local lawyer at the time, had a business called Canada Kelp Corporation. And he was able to attract some kind of a contract with the province of British Columbia to harvest kelp up in the Queen Charlotte Islands. And the byproduct is a product called alginate that's used in ice cream and all kinds of things. And that was going to set the world on fire and make millions of dollars for everyone, including the city of Nanaimo. I still have about 500 shares of that stock for sale, and if anyone wants to give me a call, they know where they can reach me at. This scheme, I don't know if it's any better off than the last one, but we'll give it time. Maybe something will develop.
Do we need to run, question 12, do we need to run the city more like a business?
Well, I think the answer probably would lie in the fact that while the city is similar to a business, it isn't truly a business in that respect. One significant difference is that the city is not allowed by law to run at a deficit. The province can, the federal government can, but the municipalities cannot. And so we have to have a balanced budget. Not maybe, we have to in every case. And we can't have expenditures greater than income, or you run into a deficit, and that's the end of it right there. So we have to be very cognizant of the fact that these budgets need to be balanced and researched carefully. And they are, in my opinion, we're doing a very good job of due diligence, trying to make sure we can cut the corners where we can, save money where we can, and I think this new council will be every bit as vigilant in that direction.
Will the Economic Development Corporation be publicly accountable?
Yes, it will, and the reason I pause for a moment is that it is a corporation, but the sole shareholder at this time is the city of Nanaimo, and to oversee the investment that taxpayers are making, which is about $1.35 million a year, we have also established, parallel with the Economic Development Corporation, the Progress Nanaimo Board, and which the mayor, in this case myself, and two members of council sit on. I'm the chair, and we've got a cross-section of community leaders that sit on it as well. And our responsibility will be to ensure that the direction that the Economic Development Corporation goes, the monies they spend, and whether or not they have plans to become involved in borrowing, which a normal corporation might be able to do. We want to be there to make sure that it's run in a sound fiscal manner. And I think we've got the expertise on the Progress Board to ensure that will happen.
Question 14. Will we see a passenger ferry from downtown Nanaimo to downtown Vancouver in 2012?
If you'd asked me in the next 3 years, I would say yes. In the next 12 months, maybe. There are discussions ongoing, but they're not close to finalizing at this point. That's my understanding on it. And so we continue to be getting inquiries on a regular basis. We had another inquiry within last week from a group in China, mainland China, that has already been out once before and expressed interest in it. Qualifying foreign investment, and particularly from China, is an extremely difficult thing. And it's all well and good for 10 or 12 people to come over and say they represent the Chinese government and they want to invest X number of dollars, X number of millions in a project. But to try to qualify that and make sure that they have the authority to enter into it and in fact have access to that money is entirely a different matter. But we also have someone from this side, from the North American continent, that is expressing strong interest. So we're just working through it, and I know it'll happen. It's just when.
Number 15. Is the tax exemption plan the key that will finally lead to a hotel beside the convention center?
I think, in my opinion, that it's certainly going to be an important factor. And let me just say that we had a discussion with a hotel company that was and is still interested in the project. When they came to see us several months ago, they went through it, did a number crunch, and came back and said, in their opinion, that it wasn't financially viable for them without some kind of concessions offered by the city. Our position at that time was we were not there yet. We weren't able to do that, and so they went away, and it kind of died off. Now council has come back with a staff suggestion that we look at offering possibly a moratorium on taxes for 10 years, possibly some other considerations in an effort to attract a developer. And I think it's important we go back and look at why we're doing this. We're not going to, and I'm not certainly going to debate the merits of the conference center. The Vancouver Island Conference Center is here now, and we're going to make it work one way or the other. And the problem is today we're funding a shortfall of almost $1 million a year. And unless we do something dramatic, something different, something new, something innovative, we're not going to be getting away from that $1 million cost, which in fact could go up as the years progress. So I feel, in my opinion, that incentive is needed. 3 years have gone by and no firm commitments. So with this one, I can tell you that the developer that we spoke to several months ago understands that that's now available. He has come back to us, or they have come back to us, asked us for details of it, and they've expressed a renewed interest in the project. Does that mean the hotel will be built tomorrow? Definitely not. But it does mean there's renewed interest in it, and I think offering the incentive was the right thing to do.
Question 16. Are there too many high-paid staffers at City Hall?
Well, yeah, that's always a concern. I do think council and the present and the former council, the last 3 years, was very cognizant of the fact that the public is concerned about it. It's very much a cart and a horse thing, because they are paid very well compared to the private sector, but not all the private sector. And, you have to look in light of the fact that we have in our senior management team made up of about 5 members, 2 of them are chartered accountants. And I would suggest that the wage they're getting would be similar to, and maybe in some cases less than, they would earn if they were in the private sector as chartered accountants. So all of our senior managers have degrees and in senior degrees in different capacities, and I think that if you really want to get the best people, you have to pay for them. And I don't think I spend a fair amount of time. I'm in the city every day, 5 days a week, and I can tell you, I don't see a lot of fat, and I certainly don't see a lot of people with their feet up in the desk doing nothing. They work very, very hard for the money that they get. They're well paid, but they work hard for it.
Question 17. Are you and the other council members paid fairly?
I think we're paid fairly. You can argue whether it's too much or too little, but I think we're paid fairly. And I say that in light of the fact that the way the salaries are determined, and traditionally, and we've stayed with it, is that just at the end of the term, of a 3-year term, then the existing council makes a determination for the incoming council. Now, obviously, people who are returned will receive that consideration. But the way it's done, it's based on a cross-section of similar-sized communities throughout British Columbia and possibly Western Canada. Depends how far they want to make the comparisons. And, it is an industry, if you wish, that does attract higher wages. That's a simple reality. And I think that's probably generally true of the public sector throughout. In this day of age, there are good paying jobs available in the public sector, and Nanaimo's no exception. But, it's important that I do think people need to look at it in light of the responsibility they have, remembering that Nanaimo is a $160 million a year operation. Lots of responsibility, lots of challenge, and lots of issues, and you need to hire the right people to do the right job, and we have.
Question 18. Are too many council decisions made in secret?
I don't think so. I know that it isn't always shared by everyone. That's my own personal view. But I'll qualify it by saying that it's land litigation and legal. Thank you very much. I lost the last one there. Land litigation and legal. And the reason labor is the other issue, because litigation and legal stand together, and labor, obviously, if you're dealing with wages and contracts and personal matters, particularly where it involves a resident or a landowner, if it involves the acquisition or sale of property that the city may own. If it involves labor contracts, these items are normally, and in fact in almost all cases, held in camera for that reason. And obviously, without doing it, you could, in the case of a land sale, find that your prices have been impacted by public knowledge. And the same could be a negative issue could be made over litigation if you're involved with lawsuits with people and so on. So largely, the three L's are respected, and I think that's something that is important to me. I really am not aware of any time holding an in-camera meeting to keep a secret from the public. I'm convinced, and I think staff will confirm as well, that, and we have the administrative department upstairs that oversees all these things, and I think we'll find that whenever this happens, there's a sound reason for being in camera, and not simply just to keep information from the public.
Question 19. What will be this council's biggest challenge during the 12 months ahead?
Aside from committees? I think, working together harmoniously and respecting each councillor's views, which they're all entitled to, and we have to always be reminded that we don't go out and hire people. The citizens of Nanaimo choose their own representatives, and we're thrown together, and we have to work that out as best we can and come up with a process of deciding on policy as we move ahead. And so there'll be some challenges on it as we move forward, but I honestly believe that this particular council has the potential to really be an excellent council. And we've got youth now with Councillor Anderson bringing a whole new perspective to some of the old crocs, including myself. And I think that we're going to find Councillor Anderson's got some really good views, some good ideas. And he's a bright young guy, and I think he's going to bring a whole new concept to the city, and I'm looking forward to that too. So I think, all in all, we'll have challenges, but we're going to get through them.
20th and final question. How much better of a mayor will you be during your second term?
Well, I'm glad they're all easy questions. Thank you for waiting to the end. Well, I don't know. I think the one thing I probably will be doing more of than in the past is trying to drive the issues ahead a little faster than was done in the past. I've always respected everyone's right to speak at council meetings in particular. Sometimes that's resulted in very lengthy debate back and forth and back and forth and back and forth. And after an hour of aggressive debate, when the question's called for a vote, everyone votes for it. So you think, what did we spend an hour doing? So time is important. And I think now I'm going to try, if I can, without restricting their opportunity to speak, to move the agendas along at a faster pace and to try to get people to be a little more succinct in their responses and try to keep the meetings more on time, because sometimes they go on for an awful long time. And at the end of the day, when they vote, they all vote the same way. So I just have to question whether I've allowed, it's been my fault that we've allowed just far too much time. At some point, we have to call the question earlier, in my opinion, and if people are ready to vote, and maybe that's the answer. Is everyone ready to vote? And if the consensus is yes, let's get on with it and move along to the next issue, because we've got lots of issues to face and not a lot of time to do it.
Right. I'm going to cheat a little bit. One bonus question. Is your second term your final term as mayor for Nanaimo?
Well, I'm glad you asked that question. And I've given that serious consideration. And probably about 35 months from now, I'll let you know.